The night of September 16, 2025 was dark and quiet in the Gulf of Aden. The sea was calm and the stars were bright. On the bridge of the USS Laboon, a U.S. Navy destroyer, sailors watched their radar screens. Suddenly, something appeared. It was not one dot, but many. 30 small, fast-moving boats were racing across the water, like a pack of wolves hunting in the dark. They were heading straight for the USNS Guadalupe, a massive Navy tanker sailing nearby. The time was 3:30 in the morning. The quiet night was about to explode into chaos. This was not a normal encounter. It was the start of a battle. The men on the USS Laboon knew they had to act fast. Their mission was to protect the Guadalupe at all costs. The small boats on the radar were moving at over 40 knots, a speed that meant they were built for attack. The sailors sounded the alarm, waking everyone on board. Lights flashed and sirens blared through the ship. Every sailor knew their job. They raced to their battle stations, their hearts pounding. They were preparing for a fight against an unknown enemy that was closing in fast. The distance between the ships was shrinking with every second that passed. Less than an hour later, the attack began. The pirate boats swarmed around the giant tanker like angry bees. The night air was suddenly filled with the roar of their engines and the crackle of gunfire. An RPG, a rocket-propelled grenade, streaked through the darkness and slammed into the back of the USNS Guadalupe. A ball of fire erupted, and a small fire started on the deck. The pirates were not just trying to scare them, they were trying to destroy the ship. Another RPG flew through the air, this time aimed at the USS Laboon. It missed the bridge by only 8 feet, a terrifyingly close call for the ship's command team. The danger was real and immediate. The pirates were not just a few men with old rifles. They were an organized force, and they were attacking with military-grade weapons. They were firing everything they had, hoping to overwhelm the American sailors with sheer force. The sound of bullets hitting the steel hulls of the Navy ships was deafening. The sailors on the Guadalupe and the Laboon had to stay calm, focus, and trust their training. Their survival and the survival of their ship depended on what they did in the next few minutes. This was a test of courage and skill in the middle of a dangerous sea. The USNS Guadalupe was not just any ship. It was a lifeline for the entire U.S. Navy fleet in the region. This massive tanker was a floating gas station, carrying over 8.2 million gallons of JP-5 jet fuel. This fuel was essential for powering the fighter jets on aircraft carriers and keeping the entire strike group moving. Without the Guadalupe, the Navy's most powerful ships would be stranded in the middle of the ocean. The pirates knew this. They did not choose their target by accident. They aimed for the heart of the Navy's operations, hoping to cripple its power in one bold move. The cargo on the Guadalupe made it incredibly dangerous. If the pirates' attack had been successful, the consequences would have been catastrophic. A large fire or a direct hit on one of its main fuel tanks could have caused a massive explosion. Experts later calculated that an explosion of that size would be like setting off 30,000 pounds of TNT. It would have been the largest non-nuclear explosion in the history of naval warfare. The blast would have destroyed not only the Guadalupe, but also any ships nearby, including the USS Laboon. The lives of hundreds of American sailors were at risk. The crew of the Guadalupe knew the danger better than anyone. They were not combat sailors. They were civilian mariners working for the Navy. Their job was to keep the ship running and the fuel flowing. But on this night, they became frontline fighters. When the RPG hit and the fire started, they did not panic. Their training kicked in immediately. A small team rushed to the fire with extinguishers and hoses. They bravely fought the flames while bullets flew all around them. They knew that a small fire on a ship full of fuel could quickly turn into an unstoppable inferno. Every person on that ship understood the stakes. This was not just about saving a vessel. It was about preventing a disaster of epic proportions. An explosion would have created a massive fireball, sending a deadly shockwave across the water. The environmental damage from 8.2 million gallons of jet fuel spilling into the Gulf of Aden would have been devastating for years to come. The pirates were not just attacking a ship, they were gambling with the lives of everyone in the area and the health of the ocean itself. The sailors had to stop them, no matter what it took. These attackers were not the pirates of old stories. They were not desperate fishermen looking for a quick score. This was a trained and organized paramilitary force, an army on the water. The man behind this army was Khalid Qadar Abdul Rahman, a feared Somali warlord. He had built a violent empire on the coast of Somalia. Over the years, he had collected more than $40 million in ransom money from hijacking other ships. He did not spend this money on mansions or cars. He used it to buy weapons on the black market, turning his group of thugs into a professional fighting force. Rahman's army was made up of over 250 pirates spread across 30 speedboats. These were not simple fishing skiffs. They were fast, agile boats designed for combat. Rahman had equipped his men with powerful weapons. They carried AK-47 rifles, the standard weapon of armies around the world. But they also had much heavier firepower. Each boat was armed with RPG-7 grenade launchers, PKM machine guns, and even DSHK 12.7mm heavy machine guns. These were weapons designed to destroy armored vehicles and shoot down helicopters. This was an arsenal that could challenge a modern military. The pirates acted with discipline and coordination. They did not attack randomly. They moved in waves, communicating with each other to coordinate their fire. Their goal was to overwhelm the U.S. Navy ships with a massive, sustained assault. The sheer volume of their attack was shocking. In less than an hour, the pirates fired over 70,000 rounds of ammunition. They were not trying to scare the sailors into surrendering. They were trying to blast their way onto the ships and take control by force. This was a new kind of piracy, more like warfare than a simple robbery at sea. Khalid Qadar Abdul Rahman was a smart and ruthless leader. He understood the value of the USNS Guadalupe and the chaos its capture would cause. He had trained his men for this moment, drilling them in tactics and teamwork. He believed that with enough firepower and surprise, he could defeat even the powerful U.S. Navy. His ambition was to show the world that he was a force to be reckoned with, a king in his own lawless kingdom. The attack on the Guadalupe was his biggest and boldest move yet, a declaration of war against anyone who sailed through his waters. Faced with this terrifying assault, the sailors of the U.S. Navy did not back down. The USS Laboon, commanded by Captain Michael Harris, immediately returned fire. The ship's decks erupted with the thunderous roar of its own weapons. Sailors manned the .50 caliber machine guns, powerful weapons that could tear through the pirates' small boats. The sound was deafening as they sent streams of tracer bullets into the darkness, aiming for the swarming speedboats. Every sailor was focused, using their training to defend their ship and their crewmates. The sea around them lit up with muzzle flashes from both sides. The battle quickly escalated. The USS Laboon was soon joined by the USS Cape St. George, a cruiser that was patrolling just 5 miles away. It raced to the scene, its own weapons ready to fire. Both ships unleashed their most powerful close-range defense, the 20mm Phalanx CIWS. This is a computer-controlled Gatling gun that can fire thousands of rounds per minute. It is designed to shoot down incoming missiles, but it is just as deadly against small boats. In the first 10 minutes of the fight, the two ships fired an incredible 4,500 rounds, creating a wall of steel that the pirates had to fly through. The Navy's response was swift and brutal. The pirates' speedboats, which seemed so menacing just moments before, were no match for the heavy machine guns and the Phalanx CIWS. The .50 caliber rounds ripped through their fiberglass hulls, and the 20mm cannon shells shredded them to pieces. One by one, the pirate boats exploded in balls of fire and smoke. In less than 30 minutes, 9 of the 30 pirate skiffs were completely destroyed, sent to the bottom of the Gulf of Aden. The warlord's army was taking heavy losses, with at least 70 pirates killed or wounded in the initial chaos. But the pirates were not ready to give up. Even after losing so many men and boats, they were determined to fight on. Over 180 pirates on the remaining 21 skiffs regrouped a short distance away. They had made a serious miscalculation. They had underestimated the firepower and the fighting spirit of the U.S. Navy. But their leader, Khalid Qadar Abdul Rahman, had built his empire on violence and was not a man who accepted defeat. The surviving pirates prepared for a new wave of attacks, ready to continue the battle. The fight for the USNS Guadalupe was far from over. Captain Michael Harris knew that even though they had won the first round, the battle was not over. The pirates were still a major threat. They had a lot of men and weapons left. Fighting them off all night would be difficult and dangerous. On the bridge of the USS Laboon, he made a critical decision. He needed more help. He picked up his radio and sent an urgent request for reinforcements. The call went to Camp Lemonnier in Djibouti, which is the only permanent U.S. military base in Africa. It was 800 miles away, but it was home to some of the most advanced military assets in the world. The response from Camp Lemonnier was immediate. The U.S. military knew the situation was serious. First, they launched MQ-9 Reaper drones. These are not just spy planes, they are hunter-killers. The drones flew high and fast towards the battle, their powerful cameras giving the commanders on the ground a clear view of everything that was happening. They could see the pirate boats regrouping. They could track their movements. These eyes in the sky gave the U.S. Navy a huge advantage. They could see what the enemy was planning next, taking away the element of surprise. Next, the real firepower was sent in. 3 AH-64E Apache attack helicopters lifted off from the base. These are flying tanks, armed with 30mm cannons and deadly Hellfire missiles. They are designed to destroy tanks and fortifications on the ground, and they would be just as effective against the pirates' speedboats. The sound of their rotor blades cutting through the air is a sound that enemies fear. The Apaches flew low and fast over the water, heading straight for the fight. They were coming to turn the tide of the battle and protect the American ships. Finally, the military prepared a ground force. 3 massive CH-47 Chinook helicopters were readied for takeoff. These are heavy-lift helicopters, capable of carrying large numbers of troops and equipment. Inside each Chinook, a team of highly trained soldiers prepared for their mission. The plan was changing. It was no longer just about defending the ships at sea. The U.S. military was getting ready to take the fight directly to the pirates. They were going on the offensive. The arrival of these powerful reinforcements signaled a major shift in the battle. The Reaper drones did more than just watch the battle at sea. They followed the pirate boats that were trying to escape. The drones flew silently over the Somali coastline, searching for where the pirates came from. Soon, their high-tech cameras found it, a fortified compound hidden near the town of Barawi. This was not just a small camp, it was a major pirate base. The drone footage showed a large base with over 150 militants, heavily armed and ready for a fight. This was the headquarters of the warlord, Khaled Qadar Abdul Rahman. The intelligence gathered by the drones was honestly shocking. The base was a fortress. It had defensive positions, armed guards, and a huge stockpile of weapons. The drones identified more than 15 tons of weapons stored in the compound. This included over 200 RPGs, the same weapons they had used to attack the USNS Guadalupe. The pirates were not just supplied for one attack. They were equipped for a long war. The most critical discovery was a massive fuel depot. The pirates had stored 40,000 gallons of diesel fuel, which they needed to power their fleet of attack boats. With this new information, the U.S. military made a bold decision. They would not wait for the pirates to attack again. They would launch a surprise counter-assault on the base itself. They were going to cut the head off the snake. The plan was to use the reinforcements from Camp Lemonnier to carry out a raid. The 3 CH-47 Chinook helicopters were loaded with 360 U.S. Navy SEALs, some of the most elite Special Forces soldiers in the world. Their mission was to land near the base, surround it, and eliminate the threat once and for all. The battle was about to move from the open sea to the dusty land of Somalia. This was a major strategic shift. For years, the Navy had focused on defending ships from pirates. Now, they were taking the fight directly to the pirates' home turf. The goal was not just to stop one attack, but to destroy the pirates' ability to launch any future attacks. The Navy SEALs, the Apache helicopters, and the warships at sea would all work together in a coordinated assault. The sun was beginning to rise, and it would bring with it a new and even more intense phase of the conflict. The raid on the pirate fortress began at 8 o'clock in the morning. The sun was just rising over the Somali coast, casting long shadows across the landscape. The 3 Chinook helicopters flew in low and fast, avoiding enemy detection. They dropped the 360 Navy SEALs into ambush positions, creating a silent ring of death around the pirate compound. The militants inside had no idea that they were completely surrounded by America's deadliest soldiers. At the same time, the 3 Apache attack helicopters circled high above, their pilots watching the compound through their targeting systems, ready to provide air support. The first shot of the land battle was fired from the sea. The USS Laboon, still miles offshore, aimed its powerful 5-inch deck gun at the pirate base. The gun fired a high-explosive shell that traveled miles in seconds. It hit its target with perfect accuracy, the 40,000-gallon diesel fuel depot. The result was a massive fiery explosion. A huge ball of orange and black fire shot hundreds of feet into the air. The shockwave shook the ground for miles. The pirates' entire fuel supply was gone in a single, thunderous blast, leaving them with no way to power their boats. The explosion was the signal for the attack to begin. As chaos and confusion spread through the pirate camp, the Apache helicopters swooped in. They unleashed a storm of fire from their 30mm cannons, their bullets tearing through the pirates' buildings and defenses. They fired Hellfire missiles at the weapons stockpile, causing another series of huge explosions as the 15 tons of ammunition and RPGs took off. The pirate base was being systematically destroyed from the air. The militants who tried to fight back were quickly cut down by the overwhelming firepower of the Apaches. On the ground, the Navy SEALs moved in. They advanced on the compound, their mission to capture or eliminate any remaining pirates. They moved with speed and precision, clearing buildings and securing the area. The pirates, who were already shocked and disorganized by the explosions, stood no chance against the elite special forces. The raid was a complete success. In a short amount of time, the U.S. military had not only defeated the pirates at sea, but had also destroyed their base of operations on land, ending the threat from Khalid Qadar Abdul Rahman's army. When the smoke cleared, the results of the epic showdown were clear. The U.S. military had achieved a decisive victory, but it had not come without a price. During the intense firefight at sea, 9 American sailors were wounded. 2 of them were seriously injured and needed immediate medical attention. The other 7 suffered from burns and cuts from flying glass and shrapnel when the RPGs hit. These sailors had shown incredible bravery, defending their ships while under heavy fire. They were a testament to the toughness and resilience of the U.S. Navy. The pirates, on the other hand, suffered devastating losses. In the naval battle alone, at least 70 of their fighters were killed or wounded. 9 of their high-speed attack boats were completely destroyed, sunk to the bottom of the ocean. The raid on their land base was even more destructive. The massive explosions from the fuel and weapons stockpiles, combined with the attacks from the Apache helicopters and Navy SEALs, had wiped out their entire operation. The warlord's army, which had seemed so powerful just hours before, was completely shattered. The USNS Guadalupe, the ship that was the center of the attack, had been saved. The quick actions of its crew in putting out the fire had prevented a catastrophe. The ship had some damage to its stern from the RPG strike, but it was still operational. Most importantly, its precious cargo of 8.2 million gallons of jet fuel was safe. The USS Laboon and the USS Cape St. George also had some minor damage from bullet impacts on their hulls, but they remained fully capable of fighting. The U.S. Navy had kept control of the situation from start to finish. The battle sent a powerful message to pirates throughout the region. The U.S. Navy had not just defended itself, it had gone on the offensive. By destroying the pirates' base on land, the military showed that there was no safe place for them to hide. The destruction of their fuel, weapons, and boats meant that this particular group would not be able to threaten shipping lanes for a very long time, if ever again. The warlord Khalid Qadar Abdul Rahman's dream of building a pirate empire had been turned to ash and smoke on the Somali coast. The epic showdown on September 16, 2025, was more than just a single battle. It marked a turning point in the fight against piracy. The attack on the USNS Guadalupe was the largest and most organized pirate assault on a U.S.-flagged ship in almost 20 years. It showed that the threat at sea was changing. This was not just about opportunistic criminals anymore. It was about coordinated paramilitary groups with heavy weapons and military tactics. The pirates had evolved, and the world's navies had to evolve with them. The American response to the attack demonstrated a major shift in strategy. Before this event, Counter-piracy operations were mostly defensive. Navies would patrol the seas, escort ships, and rescue them if they were attacked. But the raid on the base in Barawi was different. It was an offensive move. The U.S. military decided that the best way to stop pirates was not just to defeat them at sea, but to destroy their ability to operate from land. This new, more aggressive approach sent a clear signal that attacks on international shipping would have severe consequences. This battle highlights why stopping piracy is so important for the entire world. The oceans are the highways of global trade. Everything from food and medicine to oil and electronics travels by sea. Pirates threaten these vital supply lines, making goods more expensive and creating instability. When they attack a ship like the USNS Guadalupe, they also create a huge risk of environmental disaster. Keeping the seas safe is a job that benefits everyone, not just the countries whose flags are on the ships. It ensures that trade can continue to flow freely and safely around the globe. In the end, the bravery of the sailors on the USS Laboon and USNS Guadalupe, the skill of the pilots and Navy SEALs, and the decisive leadership of the commanders saved the day. They faced a new and dangerous enemy and won a clear victory. The Battle of the Gulf of Aden will be remembered as a moment when the U.S. Navy stood firm against a major threat and adapted its strategy to meet the challenges of the 21st century. It was a powerful reminder that freedom of the seas is not free. It must be protected by brave men and women who are willing to face danger in the dark, far from home.